Welcome to Build Up California's March Network meeting. Happy Women's History Month. Today, we will be discussing the role of local leaders in building the supply of childcare and creating communities that work for all children and families. Please use the Q&A feature on Zoom to ask your questions. We will ask them towards our speakers at the end of the meeting. So I'm really excited to introduce our two guests today that are going to lead us in some really important discussion. First, we have Mayor Elmer Martinez Saballos, who was born and raised in Redwood City. Elmer Martinez Saballos serves as the mayor and is an elected member of the City Council representing District 4. He is the proud son of Central American immigrants and a first-generation college graduate. Elmer found his calling in serving his community. In his day job, Elmer currently serves as the Director of Community Engagement and Public Affairs at Life Moves, one of the Bay Area's largest providers of interim housing and supportive services for people experiencing homelessness. Prior to this role, Elmer advocated for a stronger early childhood education and family resources while working with nonprofits like the Council for Strong America and the Child Care Coordinating Council of Four Cs of San Mateo County. Our next guest is special to us at Build Up California, as she used to be on our team. Pamela Campos is the current City Council member for San Jose's District 2. We're so proud of her. Just like Mayor Saballos, Councilmember Campos grew up in the community that she now serves. And before joining the City Council, Pamela spent over a decade in education, beginning as a preschool teacher. We love our teachers. In the Silicon Valley, where unlivable wages created financial stress and difficult choices. She also served as the chair of the policy committee for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, MTC, advocating for policies that improve access and equity in regional transportation. Welcome, Councilmember Campos. Our conversation today is going to be facilitated by Samantha Payton, our amazing senior policy and program officer here at Build Up. I'm going to turn it over to Samantha to kick off our conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Esmeralda. I'm going to pin us so that folks can see our speakers, and then we will kick things off. Okay, thank you all for joining. Like Esmeralda said, my name is Samantha Payton. I'm really excited to have this conversation today. As Esmeralda, Councilmember Campos used to be in our team, and she trained me in my role. And Mayor Martinez Saballos and I both went to the same high school, so I feel really special to be in this space. We're going to kick off this conversation with a very easy question to get us in the spirit of childcare. To both of our panelists today, when you were in your own childcare program, what part of the classroom would we most likely find you in? I can go first. I was always outside. I was very fortunate to go to a childcare program that had like an amazing sandbox, mud kitchen. So I was in the dirt always at my childcare program.
I'm happy to go next since I'm unmuted. I actually did not go to preschool. My parents could not afford to send me to preschool because I am their eldest and firstborn. And so I will talk about my experience as a preschool teacher. You would always find me in the infant classroom. I love spending my days with the youngest learners.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thanks, Sam. This is definitely a tough one. I think I was a pretty sleepy kid, so if I wasn't napping on a mat, I'd be reading or coloring, doing something artistic, and just enjoying company with my friends.
Thank you both for your answers. I feel like we have a greater sense of who you are. So my next question is about how you hear from your constituents about childcare. What do you hear about their issues related to access or quality? Or what do you find is the greatest barrier you hear from parents and caregivers in accessing childcare? Councilmember Campos, would you like to go first?
Sure. This was an issue that I spoke a lot about when I was running for office. It was something that is very true to why I decided to run for office in the first place. So, as I mentioned, I was a preschool teacher, and because of unlivable wages, I knew that there was something that needed to be done to make sure that this workforce and this childcare ecosystem was really meeting the needs of parents, children, and our workforce. And so it was something very popular in my district, but now as a council member, it's something that I hear throughout the city, not just from my constituents, but when I'm talking to city staff about the work that they're doing and what are the barriers to promotions and furthering their leadership. It's childcare that continuously comes up as that issue. Even over the summer, parents are struggling to find, affordable places to make sure that their kids are having a quality summer and that their minds are at ease. And so it definitely, affects everyone from folks with young children to school age children as well. And it really, I know, is not just a San Jose issue, but a statewide and national issue.
Yeah, and just building on what the council member mentioned, I absolutely hear from my constituents in Redwood City about this. I think people will reach out concerned about how they're expected to pay for childcare after rent because rent is such the it's going to always be the predominant bill that's on people's mind, right? So I think after housing, it's childcare, and when people are already struggling to just survive with the cost of living in the Bay Area. We hear that the state subsidies that are offered also just don't stretch as much as they should or need to. So we hear about those sorts of issues, but I think maybe the top the third big sort of bucket of challenges we hear about is just from people who say that they either can't find a center that, or a family provider who works within the hours that they need to because of their own day job. So it always sounds different from different families and it takes different shapes, but we do hear from folks about this.
Thank you for those thoughtful answers. And yeah, non-traditional hours care is a huge issue for folks. There might be a provider down the block, but if they don't have care hours when you need them, then they're not of use to you. Thanks for mentioning that. So in your respective roles as council member and mayor, what do you see is your role in addressing these issues? What power does local government have in helping parents access childcare?
And I'll go first this time
Mhm.
and give the councilwoman a break. Yeah, I think people don't always make that connection between local jurisdictions, cities, and the supply of childcare. But, we do have a lot of influence in what that supply looks like and also just how we connect families to the resources that already are in the community. So I think in that way, we're advocates, right? In that we're championing this issue that a lot of people don't typically think about if they don't have small kids in their home. They don't make the connection to the overall economic picture of what it means when working parents can't actually go to work. So I think that's part of it. And then the second part might be, being the convener who is helping bring folks together. When I hear from a provider who's having a trouble getting a hold of someone at City Hall, or if we have a community event, which Redwood City does a lot, and we'll have workshops and fairs for families to understand who the resources in their community are. So helping amplify that and also celebrate the providers who are doing good work because we have some long-standing providers in Redwood City with teachers who have been in the work in the field for 30 plus years and getting to recognize that is helping set the tone about how we prioritize this in Redwood City too.
Yeah, thank you for this question. we don't get asked enough as city leaders, what can we be doing to improve the childcare infrastructure that our economy really relies on? And for most cities, economic development is key to a city's success. Um, you know, there is a huge focus of cities to find ways that attract businesses into the city, find ways to generate sales tax and revenue. And so, as a council member, I am really making sure that my colleagues, not just in San Jose, but throughout the county, understand that childcare is an economic development driver that allows our businesses to stay open and enables workers to show up at their job. And so, at a time like we're facing now with the federal administration that is rolling back funds on Head Start and child development block grants, these are the opportunities that we as local leaders need to see ourselves as stepping up and filling those gaps because we know that the benefits of investing in our children, especially at this very young age of early learning and childcare, will multiply not just in economic growth, but also those economic savings when children are prepared for kindergarten, meeting their reading milestones as they go through their school journey, and then ultimately, becoming those competent, confident adults who go on to go to vocational school, college, trade school, get a job, or find their place in our community. And so, again, as city leaders, there is so much more that we can be doing to promote better childcare infrastructure. And right now, I think the work for us in this room is to have those conversations with our city leaders and educate them because I have heard from other city leaders that childcare is a county issue or a state issue. But so many people don't understand that, again, it's an economic development issue, which makes it a city issue. But there is just no distinction for a child between what level of government should be caring for them. And I think that that is what, as elected leaders, we need to look out for all of our constituents of every age and every background and not put up these fake barriers around who can do what, because at the end of the day, our children's success is up to all of us.
Thank you both for those incredible answers. I have a quick follow-up for the two of you. You both mentioned um, being conveners, bringing your colleagues to the table. Who are these people? And who would you love to have at at the table? Is it a parks director? Is it other members on the city council? Your planning teams? Like, who are these people that either need a childcare briefing or are just essential to addressing this issue?
I'll keep going unless you want to start, Mayor.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
So I will say that some of the key networking opportunities around this issue are with our large employers, with our chamber, and um, developers and dads. In this space, I tend to see a lot of women, and we know that the workforce of early learning and care is about 90% women. And so this really is not just a women's issue. This is an everybody issue. And so that's the work in convening that we are going to continue to do because that is what's going to transform this work to where it needs to be is when everybody sees themselves in the benefits and the losses. And I think that's where it points to the urgency, right? Because we know that we are losing billions of dollars annually, right? Over $100 billion nationally for not investing in childcare, and that is holding us back. And so when we have the opportunity to have these conversations with developers who can include childcare facilities in the ground floor or provide funding for our childcare facilities. That is game changing for our field.
Yeah, and thank you for the question, Sam. It is such an important question. I definitely think what Councilwoman Campos mentioned about finding yourself, seeing that reflected in the problem is so important. Redwood City, we've done a lot of work around housing and have been successful in co-locating facilities with our new housing developments. So, that's something our staff understands. Children and youth are one of our city's top three priorities, so it's something that we really want to highlight when new developers come into town and are looking at, potentially introducing a project. So there's that. And, I think the other folks on my council, Redwood City's council, has, it has done lots of work on childcare, and it's also changed in the last couple of years, right? We do have new council members. We have a mom on council again, which is incredible. So we have, a whole set of issues that's being represented again on the council. So it feels like there's momentum there, right? But I think, just connecting with residents who maybe it's been a few years since their kids have been at home, who maybe they don't have grandchildren and aren't seeing the how this intersects with economic development, right? Because it absolutely does, and it will reflect in city budgets and city services. And, our chamber will let us know if they're seeing businesses drive out of the communities. So it is, I think those are the big groups, but our staff understand it, our council understands it. So it is an issue that I think is gaining lots of traction.
Thank you both. And Kathy, I see your thoughtful question in the chat about how childcare priorities have been received by your colleagues. I hope our panelists' answers address that, but I hope we have time at the end to kind of flesh that out more. I'm going to move on to a different type of question. As you know, at Build Up California, we are really focused on this physical side, the infrastructure, the physical environment of childcare. So when we are talking about improving and expanding childcare, it's one to build supply to address a growing demand, and also to improve the quality, to give these upgrades the investment that they deserve, to keep them clean, healthy, safe spaces for young children. So my first question is for you, what is the most important element of a high quality childcare facility? With your 4Cs background, Mayor Martinez Saballos and Councilmember Campos, I'm sure you have a strong opinion about this as a former teacher yourself. What stands out to you? What is the space the element of the physical space that you would like to see a priority in this work?
Yeah, I'll take this one first.
Mhm.
I think obviously people will jump to thinking about safety and a space that's engaging, right? And in my previous day job, something that was really spotlighted last year was through Build Up San Mateo County. They had work around climate resiliency, and it's something that we don't often think about with our childcare centers, but with hotter summers, more wildfires, thinking about how we create safe spaces for our youngest learners is going to be really important. Yeah, so from a city perspective, we're thinking about we're just embarking on like a capital needs assessment to look at what our facilities look like because the city also does manage some childcare programs itself. So those facilities will be a part of it. But thinking about, how we just build these centers, these providers, homes for the future, and just giving them a hand to make sure that they can afford to do that.
Thank you, Mayor, because I had also written down climate resiliency as a key element of high quality childcare, direct access to outdoor spaces, natural light. Um, these are ways to make sure that our children have that outdoor experience, and that we are building energy efficient facilities. And I also want to call out as a former preschool teacher how important ease of supervision and those amenities that and qualities of the space that make independence of the child easier on the teacher. I'll share that I've heard so many teachers talk about how exhausted they are at the end of the day, having to carry children up onto the changing table. And if we were designing with all users in mind, then we would have little stairs for students to be able to independently get themselves onto that changing table, and it helps them build their confidence. It helps the teacher do their job in a better way. And it really, one of the things that I loved from my time at Build Up California was talking about the facility as a third teacher, because it really is that. And I have worked in so many early learning spaces throughout my career, and we know that they can be old classrooms, right? They can be an empty space in the back of a church that was not designed for children or workforce. And so that is what we need to move away from, because these are spaces that our workers and our children are spending a majority of their day in, and they deserve high quality spaces that bring good energy and joy into the work that they do. And I know that we can do so much better in the state of California for our children and for our workforce.
Thank you both. We've been so inspired by Build Up San Mateo County's climate resiliency work. I'm sure we can talk about those funding opportunities later. And Councilmember Campos, I could not agree with you more. In my former toddler classroom, lifting up to the changing table was a huge physical part of my day. And we did not have good supervision angles from where our changing table was. So it like made us down a teacher. So it was a huge issue. If I could wave my magic wand, I would have totally different layout for my old classroom. But um, uh, that's why I'm really passionate about this work. So in both of your cities, and please feel free to expand on the counties, what initiatives have been implemented to improve facility quality?
I will
Feel
start
free.
us off. Yeah.
Mhm.
So everyone in this room might be familiar with the infrastructure grant program that the state funded with ARPA dollars. And thank goodness for our county leadership that also set aside some of our local dollars, our local ARPA dollars for childcare facilities as well. It was about $15 million that went county-wide throughout Santa Clara County, and a lot of um, licensed providers in San Jose benefited from that fund. And what we found, particularly with the home-based providers, was that there was a lot of um, remedies to just create an environment that is healthier for children and our workforce. One thing in particular that we know is a huge problem is the presence of lead in our early learning facilities. And so we know that there is more money that is needed to mitigate all of the issues that we have in our childcare facilities in Santa Clara County. And one thing that I am working with our county on is identifying ways to prioritize licensed childcare centers and family childcare home providers to the funds, the reimbursements that are available for lead mitigation and other improvements to the quality of environment that already exist. And we just need to make sure that our early learning workforce and operators know that those programs are there, because we want to make sure that they are utilizing all of our government services and agencies to the best of their ability. And speaking for myself as a elected representative, it really feels like it's our job to make sure that folks are aware of all the programs and services. And so that communication is key because we, again, know that it is a very diverse workforce out there. Um, so many of our ECE workforce members are immigrants who may be speaking English as a second language. And so, whether it's just trying to get familiar with a new city and government, or whether it's the language barrier, these should not be reasons why people are not accessing services. And that is some of the work that we're doing to make sure that we are improving our facilities by just making sure that folks have the information that there's funding available to support them.
Yeah, and from the city's perspective, we are very grateful for the county's funding through Measure K of the Bugs program. At a city level, we haven't had the capacity to do something like that. But we are, especially now with new energy on the council, there has just been a lot more discussion about what funds that we do have coming in, how can we divert that to our childcare providers. So, most recently we've talked about looking at our community block grant money, which and changing the criteria for that so that we can hopefully offer more funds to childcare providers. But in the interim, it's sharing out these resources that we do have at the county level. Our group, Redwood City Together, is a huge partner in sharing information, whether it's information about 4Cs or Build Up San Mateo County. These are the folks who are just making sure that people are getting connected to the resources that are there. But if I had a magic wand, I am looking over to our neighbor in San Carlos who do have a childcare fund and are doing amazing work there. So we have a long list of ideas. And, as we get through the economic uncertainty we're experiencing, I'm hoping that we'll be able to capitalize on them more.
Thank you for shouting out San Carlos. And Kathy, I see your comment in the chat again about future facilities funds. I'm going to put a new resource that Build Up California has created. It's a humble map that we're using to collect funding opportunities, just childcare facilities grant opportunities, both past and present. So it'll be inactive and active by city and county. Um, it's a work in progress, so we're accepting information if we missed something, but we're trying to keep it as up to date as possible. But San Carlos is one of just a handful of cities that has a child care facilities fund. It's really, really exciting. So please check that map out. I am really excited about it. Thank you both for your answers. I'm gonna steer us towards kind of the regulatory environment that cities and counties have that is unique in each space. So we know that building new childcare spaces can be much easier with childcare friendly zoning laws, ordinances, policies, political will, loud parent groups. So I'm curious in each of your jurisdictions, what policy or local regulations are present to ease that creation of new childcare programs. And I'll also extend this question if there's something on the horizon, some momentum building towards some sort of new code change or law. I'd love to hear about that too. So, council member, would you like to go first?
Sure. I am so excited to share about something that I believe is very unique to San Jose, and that is our friend, family, neighbor network, which is housed in our public library system and supports those who we know are caregiving in our community with opportunities for professional development, opportunities for financial assistance in getting healthier foods to the children that they serve. And so it is. really a great first step for folks who may want to one day become a licensed family childcare home, but aren't ready to go through state licensing just yet. And so the FFN program really strengthens our childcare ecosystem. But in last year's city budget, it was on the chopping block. So the funding runs out June of this year, and I have been advocating to my colleagues at City Council that we find funding to keep the program going, whether it continues existing at the library or another nonprofit or partner. But the work is too important because we know how many childcare facilities and businesses had to close down, unfortunately, during the pandemic, which leaves us with, we already had a very limited capacity to meet the need of all our children and families, and that has been reduced furthermore. And so that is why this program is so critical to continue funding at the City of San Jose. And so that is one area where I'm really excited to share with you all. And another opportunity that we're exploring are community benefits in new development, so that we can have dollars to support um, early care and education, either through facilities or potentially dollars to continue supporting the FFN program. But we know that as development goes up in our city, those are opportunities to create those community benefits that are really going to um, provide us with the community infrastructure that makes cities family-friendly places for everyone.
Yeah, and building on what the council member mentioned, development is absolutely one of the levers that we've pulled in Redwood City to help build the supply. I'm thinking we've had about three or so residential developments that have childcare facilities tied to those projects. I promise I'm not a billboard, a walking billboard for buildup, but they did just help connect a new childcare provider to a development in my district where we have created office spaces and affordable housing, and we'll have on-site childcare for this whole new community that we're building. So that's incredible. And through development and through prioritizing children and youth, have also, had developer agreements that are building in benefits for, the youngest members of our communities. So we have another project, the YMCA project, that's moving from one part of town to Red Morton Park. And that's going to have a new childcare facility that's going to have servicing space for about 72 kids. So it's building on the good work that we're doing. But um, you know, aside from that, we also started to exempt childcare facilities from any city impact fees. So originally, childcare facilities had been exempted in or from our parks impact fee, and we built that up so that it's all impact fees now from the city. And they're also allowed in our jurisdiction by right. So whether you're a childcare center or if you're a family childcare provider, you are able to really move through that process in a way that was just so much more complicated and filled with red tape before. So we're really, really proud of that work. But I think the other thing that we get to do is advocate and talk about the good work that we do and trying to replicate that. So I was really grateful I got to work with Lyft last year around AB 752, which was a bill about co-locating, right, childcare facilities with housing developments. So I got to speak to the work that was naturally happening in Redwood City, but hopefully just making it easier for other jurisdictions who are just catching up now and looking to build on this work. So yeah, it happens in a few different ways.
And if I may add just one more thought, because as you were speaking about development, I remember learning from a city council member in San Diego that every time there is a general plan amendment um, project for council, that their request is how will you include childcare in this development. And so that is policy work that I and my office are leading on in San Jose is um, and we will have a general plan amendment project coming to council later this fall, creating a policy so that we don't have to negotiate on the dais every single time we're doing general plan amendment updates. Because in my first year on council, we had a handful, and really as a city, we didn't ask for much. We just approved it. And that as a city is that is a huge ask from us to a developer. And so I want to make sure that when we as a council are approving those general plan amendments, that we are getting something in return that is meaningful and impactful for our community. And so that is something that we're exploring. Um, and I hope that one day we will have the capacity to also have developer fees or community benefits or some way for the city to generate those local dollars for ECE.
What a great segue into my next question. But before I move on, I wanted to highlight something you both mentioned. It reminded me of this matchmaking role that needs to happen between developers and childcare providers that are looking to co-locate. At LIF, we have learned that that's a really big role we didn't think we would be playing, where we are a childcare provider is looking for a new space, a housing developer is probably not super familiar with childcare, but would be a huge bonus to the residents they're hoping to live there. And there needs to be this person, organization that kind of brings those two people together and can hold their hands through that process because it's a lot of different regulations that apply to construction and childcare, and they're probably not familiar with both. So that it sounds like both of your communities are doing really good work there. And Elmer, definitely a shout out to Build Up San Mateo County. They are experts in that. Councilmember Campos, you just alluded to this funding puzzle. So both San Mateo County and Santa Clara County at one point have operated childcare facilities funds. ARPA dollars were huge for communities across the country doing this sort of work. But I'm curious on your thoughts of promising funding strategies for connecting childcare providers with the capital that they need to make these facilities improvements. I will grant you both magic wands again for this question. So dream big. What would work best for your communities? Whoever's ready,
Well,
please.
for funding, I see so many cities and counties working to address this locally because the state and the federal government have not moved fast enough. And we know that this is an issue we've been dealing with for decades, if not generations. And so I think that this is a time for us to start considering what is that pathway to statewide funding, because one thing that um, I reflect on in my county and city is that the population of San Jose is about half the population of the entire Santa Clara County. So Santa Clara County is about 15 cities, 2 million people, and San Jose is a million residents. And so what we experience in our city is that the wealth is not concentrated in San Jose. It's concentrated in the northern part of our county, Palo Alto, Stanford, Los Altos Hills, Mountain View. And so if we are going to um, achieve the goals that we want, we need to make sure that we are redistributing the wealth in our community in a more equitable way. And so that is why, for me, I think when it comes to funding, the question is what are the mechanisms or the tools that we can use to generate revenue in a way that is not going to further burden those who are already struggling to make ends meet. And really, talking about the Silicon Valley, um, as San Jose is continuously ranked as the most expensive place to live in the world. And we highlight California as the fourth largest economy in the world. And so, these two things should not be able to coexist, where we have all of this wealth and we have so many people in poverty, and we are at a stalemate. I think that as more cities and counties start to introduce funding mechanisms, we also have to think about what is that? Is there an opportunity for us at the statewide level to get funding? Right now, we may have heard about the billionaire tax for healthcare. And so that was something that I was interested in is an income tax for childcare, and learned that only the state has the authority to levy an income tax. And so for me, if I could wave that magic wand, it would be to create a tax, some sort of sustainable revenue source that is redistributing the wealth from the places that have higher concentrations into the entire community, because we know that when we're investing in something like early care and education, that we'll see those benefits multiply. And so it is something that as a community, would love to see how we can start uh, creating some more advocacy that moves us in the needle of a funding mechanism. I really, really see that with states like New York, like New Mexico and New York City, and now San Francisco are talking about childcare. It really feels like the momentum is building and moving us in the right direction to make these conversations less of a dream and more of a reality.
And I think the councilwoman hit the nail right on the head, right? If we had the magic wand, I think a sustainable funding source would be it, right? And I know in San Mateo County, we've looked at, potential bond measure and have done polling for that. While I was at Four Cs, we received some of that polling data back, and it was bad enough to make you cry, right? Where people aren't seeing that connection to childcare, especially if they don't have kids at home. So I think, building that advocacy and education would be so important. But that's something where Santa Clara County has its feet for sure. Whether it's affordable housing, they've got their bond measure, right? And so I think, having us explore those options would be important. We've had supervisors Jackie Spear and Lisa Gaucher in San Mateo County who've had listening sessions, and that is a reoccurring thing that we're hearing, right? So absolutely, we're going to need to come up with a united front on how we address this issue, because Redwood City had maybe 3,000 unmet slots, right, for folks who needed childcare in a city of 16,000. And that looks so different. So we really can't work on this in silos. It's got to be, a coordinated effort between all of us.
Yeah, when someone gets the answer, it needs to be spread widely because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. And Councilmember, you stressed in a few of your answers that the state's funding has run dry. Build Up California continues to advocate for more IGP funding, but it's one budget year, one tough budget year after another, and we're still making a lot of noise about it, but it's been really inspiring to see what local cities and counties have done in the absence of IGP, because they've seen how transformative that sort of grant making is for childcare. That being said, that was the end of my questions, but I wanted to give each of you a couple more minutes to address anything going on in your cities or neighborhoods that you wanted to highlight related to childcare. And then I will open it up for questions. And Esmeralda is going to share a couple updates from Build Up California. So, Mayor, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I guess if I could just quickly wrap it all up, I think in Redwood City we're really proud of the work that we've done, and we know that there is still so much more work to do to make this a livable community for everybody, right? And I think that we're also taking looks at all the other intersecting issues that are impacting this same community, right? Whether it's working families or the providers who are giving this service day in and day out and doing it for below minimum wage, right? We, looked at our economic mobility plan last fall to talk about, what this group needs to be successful. So we're trying to look at this problem from all different angles, but just making sure that people who are passionate about this show up to their city council meetings to let them know that this is a priority is so important because it stands out when somebody comes with passion and is making a lot of sense during public comment. That sticks with the elected. So just very grateful for the folks who joined us and are being here in community with us tonight. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Campos.
Thank you for the chance to share a little bit more about specifically the last comment around statewide funding and how we can strengthen our advocacy. I have been meeting with a very small group of city leaders, like a kind of ad hoc group from the California League of Cities Women's Caucus. And what brought us together was this issue of childcare. And so in October at the annual League of Cities conference that brings together the, over 200 cities in the state of California, we had a panel on childcare that was incredibly well attended and led to a virtual panel that we had just last month. And and so city leaders are interested in this issue. They are already putting in the work, and I think that is the work that we are now trying to elevate at the city level, because again, so many times we hear that this is a county or a state issue, but when city leaders come together and advocate to the state legislature how important this is, um, that is exactly the kind of momentum and movement building that I think will have the effect and change that we're asking for. And so it's something that I've spoken with Ted Lempert from Children Now, who we know was a state assembly member, and he told me like we've never had city leaders talk to us about this issue. So the fact that we now have this movement of city leaders who want to advocate for this, it's going to perk up the ears of our state legislature because we are trusted members that represent our community and what our community needs. And so with that, I want to pivot back to the local and what we're doing in the city of San Jose. We have aligned our city budget with our city priorities. And so one of our city priorities or one of our city focus areas is called growing our economy. And when I first saw this item back in September last year, I asked, can we include childcare in this? Because San Jose is dubbed the capital of Silicon Valley. And so what I saw in growing our economy was very AI focused. And we know that, even as technology advances, there are still things that we can never outsource to tech, right? Care work is the kind of work that we'll never be able to outsource to anything besides human to human connection. And so it is a narrative change about why a city needs to include childcare as part of how we grow our economy, because we in this space know how critical it is to our economy. And if I am successful in including this in our policy, it will not only be a statement of values as a city council, but it will also then have the public investment of staff time and resources as a council policy and priority that will help us make sure that our childcare small businesses, whether it's a family, whether it's home-based or a childcare center, that our childcare businesses are treated as such, because we have so much support for our restaurants and our tech entrepreneurs, and we need to come with that same level of energy with our childcare businesses. And so that is why it is so important to know who your elected officials are at every level, but especially locally, because we are living here, 7 days a week. We don't have to go to Sacramento or Washington, D.C. So, you have to know who we are. You have to come to our city council meetings, our town halls, and make sure that folks know that this issue is far more than just the person who is showing up. But this, we've got an entire community. We have parents, we have children who, who we as elected officials, we need to hear from you all.
Thank you so much. I can't think of a better way to close. Thank you so much to the two of you for your time this evening, for your work in Redwood City and San Jose. I haven't seen any questions in our Q&A. I saw one fly through the chat. Kathy asked, what can we do to support you? And both of you mentioned this need for community advocacy and reaching out to your local elected officials because they are there to listen to you. And Councilmember Campos, I liked your reminder that they are your neighbors. They literally live in your neighborhood, and they are there to listen to you. Would either of you like to add on to that answer of what the general public, what childcare advocates can do to support the work at the local level?
I,
Sorry.
I did you want to share something, Mayor?
No, sorry. I was going to ask Sam to repeat her question. Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to ask if there was anything to add for what we can do to support our city council members, our local elected officials in furthering this mission of bringing childcare to the forefront of economic well-being, community well-being, and make your jobs easier for you.
Yeah, and I'll quickly go and I'll give it over to the councilwoman. But I think in San Mateo County there is there's momentum from council members. I think parents need somewhere to go and need to really be funneled and leveraged, right, for their voices and the perspectives that they can offer. And I think we often see them show up to council meetings individually and they're not coordinated, right? So having that level of mobilization and coordinating these folks to understand that their problems are a part of a bigger ecosystem, I think would be really helpful. And I've seen, I think it's the Parents Action Network right at the statewide level who do so much advocacy in San Francisco, and we'll have those ECE days on Sacramento. So I think just recreating that here at the very local level would be an incredible help for those of us who are trying to push the needle here.
Yeah, definitely. Those actions, rallies. I've even seen in Concord with BNU's childcare advocacy work and bringing city council members into the family child care home space so that they can see for themselves what the work really is, and why it's so important that we are doing everything that we can, everything in our power to support this workforce that supports us. And so I think that my piece of advice is what kind of information we're sharing, because we know that it's a public good, that it's a social good. And if we want to expand this conversation outside of, this group that is so tightly knit, um, we need to speak in their language. And so that is knowing the economic impacts, right? What are our economic losses in productivity? What is the opportunity for economic growth? How many licensed childcare centers or home-based care exists in your city? I just learned that for the entire city of San Jose, we only have 41 childcare centers. And 41 sounds like a big number, but it's really not. And so I think that is information that needs to be what is helping make others more aware of why this issue is so important. If there's any information that helps you make that case about the economics of childcare, I think that is a really strong way to get businesses in, and in whatever way you can attract the interest of your local chamber of commerce. I know that at the national level, the U.S. Chamber has been instrumental in getting us important data around childcare. And so, how can we leverage that locally? to make sure that our local leaders have that information so that they can make childcare a top priority as well.
Thank you. Amazing answer. Many action items in there. So I hope our audience members walk away with something to do to build on what we've spoken about tonight. Thank you both again so much for spending your evening with us and giving us really valuable perspective from your very special roles that you both have. I'm going to hand it back to Esmeralda to, in our last minute, just share what Build Up California has been up to at the state level, because we have a couple bills we want to announce. And then we'll break and we can all have dinner. So Esmeralda, I'm going to invite you back to our screen. The floor is yours.
Thank you. But first, I want to make sure that we thank our guests, Mayor Elmer Martinez Saballos and Councilmember Pamela Campos, and thank all of our guests that joined us today for this late meeting. We're so proud of you both. And we do want to just share really briefly that we do have some policy priorities that we are working on for the upcoming year. I put it in the chat, but really quickly, AB 1914 is authored by Assemblymember Schiavo and would include childcare as essential infrastructure in general plans. Councilmember Campos alluded to this as she was speaking, and this is a bill that we're really excited about. And then also AB 2006 is authored by Assemblymember Rodriguez, and it's going to help make it easier for childcare to be established within state buildings. So just wanted to share a little bit about our bills. We hope that you can support us. The link is in the chat. And if you are interested in signing on to support, please reach out. In post, we will send a link to this recording along with some more information about the work that we're doing this year. So we hope you join us. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. Have a great evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.